October 2025. Across Texas, sirens filled the night. For months, federal and state agents had chased an endless tide of illegal crossings and violent crime. By autumn, over 200,000 migrants had been arrested, along with 35,000 criminals tied to drugs, gangs, and trafficking. But beneath it all lay something darker. Interrogations revealed whispers of children being taken, hidden in warehouses and freight yards. This wasn't immigration. It was a criminal empire, using border chaos to mask child trafficking and narcotics smuggling on a massive scale. From the Rio Grande Valley to Houston, evidence grew. Drones caught uninspected containers, and encrypted messages pointed to the port of Houston, where kidnapped children would be loaded onto a ship carrying tons of heroin, cocaine, and methamphetamine. And the clock was running out. One night left. One chance to stop a nightmare in motion. If you believe the children must be saved, type protect in the comments. And hit like so this story reaches more people before the next chapter begins. The situation had crossed a line. This was no longer immigration, it was national security. By the second week of October, the Joint Task Force had shifted from border chases to a full intelligence hunt. In the Houston field office, FBI, DEA, and Homeland Security analysts stared at a wall of glowing monitors, maps, cargo routes, and intercepted chatter. Everything pointed to one name, a Venezuelan trafficker called El Pastor. His network treated children like cargo and narcotics like currency. Wiretaps and encrypted traces filled in the picture. Legitimate freight firms were the cover. Empty containers from Mexico were reloaded near Corpus Christi, driven north on forged papers, and quietly rerouted to Dock 7 in Houston. Each crate carried two manifests, one for inspection, another for special cargo. Hidden compartments could hold 10 to 12 children, sedated and sealed away. The scale was brutal. In 18 months, more than 120 children across 5 states had vanished, many suspected to be in this same network. Drone footage showed kids being herded into warehouse Dock 47, where rows of steel containers waited. Thermal scans inside a single container found at least 17 heat signatures. Then maritime radar locked on an unregistered freighter steaming in from the Gulf, the Santa Rosa, 360 feet long, already loaded with tons of cocaine and meth. The plan was revealed. Children used cargo insurance to move drugs. Major General Robert Hensley studied the map, voice low and hard. They steal childhood for profit. Tonight we take it back and put every hand behind this evil into chains. The rules had changed. There would be no mercy. The plan was clear, but executing it meant walking straight into the lion's den. Comment ready below if you'd stand with the agents about to face the unthinkable. 2:11 a.m., October 18th, 2025, Port of Houston, Dock 7. The night was unnaturally still. Fog rolled over the dark water, swallowing the cranes and steel containers in silence. From a distance, it looked like any other industrial night. Workers, forklifts, floodlights. But hidden among the shadows were over 150 federal agents, FBI, SWAT, DEA tactical units, Homeland Security teams, and a small Navy SEAL detachment embedded for maritime containment. The coded word came through the radio. Contact confirmed. The cargo ship Santa Rosa had just docked. Men in unmarked jackets began unloading containers marked as agricultural chemicals. But inside, agents knew, were bricks of heroin, meth, and cocaine, nearly 18 tons combined. And deeper in the warehouse nearby, under guard, were the children. 2:14 a.m. The breach order was given. A single flashbang shattered the silence. The northern gate exploded open as armored bearcats smashed through, followed by a storm of tactical lights and boots on concrete. "Federal agents, drop your weapons!" echoed across the yard. Gunfire erupted from the loading bay. Short, violent bursts ricocheting off metal. A bullet struck a forklift, sparks raining like fireworks. SWAT agents returned fire in controlled rhythm, covering each other's advance. At the same time, 2 DEA teams flanked the eastern warehouse. One rammed through a steel door, flooding the corridor with gas grenades. Through thermal goggles, silhouettes moved, hostiles grabbing weapons, shouting in Spanish. Inside the smoke, the agents moved like ghosts, fast, deliberate. Every room cleared in seconds. A trafficker lunged with a knife. An agent parried and dropped him cold. Another suspect tried to reach the alarm panel. 2 shots cracked, then silence. 2:18 a.m. SEAL Team 4 reached the central chamber. Behind a locked steel gate, they found them. Dozens of children, frightened, some barely breathing. The gate was cut open. Agents wrapped them in thermal blankets, lifting them out one by one. From the upper mezzanine, the traffickers made their last stand. One tossed a grenade. It rolled harmlessly against a forklift before exploding in a flash of white. "Push forward! Secure the room!" shouted Commander Briggs. Within 90 seconds, it was over. 2:22 a.m. The yard was secure. 7 traffickers dead, 19 captured alive. No hostages were lost, no civilians hurt. As dawn crept over the Gulf, the air smelled of gunpowder, diesel, and justice. In just 11 minutes, the biggest human trafficking and narcotics handover in Texas history had collapsed. And in that silence after the storm, the American flag rose again above Dock 7, fluttering against the smoke and the first light of morning. 2:25 a.m. Port of Houston, Warehouse C-17. The echoes of gunfire had faded, replaced by the hum of engines and the distant crash of waves. But inside the port's command channel, one name still flashed red on every screen. El Pastor, the Venezuelan-born trafficker, now the most wanted man in Texas, had vanished amid the chaos. Agents believed he was hiding somewhere within the labyrinth of stacked shipping containers, trying to reach the freighter Santa Rosa still idling at the dock. FBI Special Agent Ramirez and her team fanned out through the maze of steel corridors. Every few seconds, a flashlight beam cut through the fog, catching glimpses of spilled cash, discarded rifles, and the glittering trail of cocaine scattered across the floor. Somewhere ahead, footsteps echoed, desperate, uneven. Thermal contact, 30 yards north, the radio hissed. DEA operators advanced. The silence shattered again. 2 shots rang out from behind a crate. Sparks burst off the metal walls. A flashbang followed, lighting the alley with white fire. When the smoke cleared, El Pastor was running, bleeding, gasping, clutching a duffel bag. He almost made it to the gangway. But as he reached for the ship's ladder, a Navy SEAL appeared from the shadows, weapon drawn. On your knees. Now the trafficker froze. For a long second, the ocean wind howled between them. Then he dropped the bag, spilling bricks of heroin, US cash, and encrypted hard drives. Within seconds, he was on the ground, cuffed, silent. The hunt was over. Across the port, agents began cataloging what they had seized. The numbers stunned even the veterans. 22 tons of cocaine, 9 tons of heroin, 5 tons of methamphetamine, over 300 assault rifles, RPGs, and machine guns, $46 million in cash, along with 8 encrypted drives containing names of 70 officials across 3 continents. The scale of the discovery forced an immediate lockdown of Dock 7. Evidence teams arrived from Quantico and Washington within hours. Forensic analysts traced satellite phones to shell companies in Panama, Belize, and Venezuela. Every name, every transaction, every shipment, logged, photographed, secured. Meanwhile, medics from the Coast Guard treated the rescued children inside a converted triage tent. Many were malnourished. Several couldn't even speak. A young girl, about 8, clutched a small bracelet and whispered, "Am I safe now?" For the first time in months, she was. By 3:40 a.m., El Pastor was escorted under heavy guard to a waiting Black Hawk helicopter. His empire, a billion-dollar network of blood and narcotics, had collapsed in less than an hour. As the rotor blades lifted into the fog, lights from the port shimmered across the water, reflecting off the wreckage of greed and human misery. The mission report would later call it Operation Iron Harbor, complete success. But for the agents who stood there in the dawn light, it was more than that. It was proof that even in the darkest corners of the coast, justice still speaks, quietly, firmly, and without hesitation. If you believe justice still matters, tap like and share this story, because what you'll see next isn't about victory. It's about what comes after the gunfire, the human cost. 4:07 a.m. Port of Houston, Dock 7. The battle was over. What had begun as a night of fog and gunfire was now a scene of organized chaos. Blue and red lights flashing across the steel horizon, radios crackling with victory and exhaustion. The Santa Rosa lay immobilized, surrounded by Coast Guard cutters and Navy patrol boats. Its decks were silent now, stripped of power, pride, and purpose. Across the pier, agents moved like a living tide, securing evidence, documenting every crate, every weapon, every inch of the warehouse that had once been a fortress of crime. Floodlights illuminated the faces of men and women who had been working for hours without rest. They weren't celebrating. They were processing the cost of what they'd just stopped. Inside a makeshift medical tent, 112 children sat wrapped in silver rescue blankets. Doctors and nurses from the Coast Guard and FEMA moved from one to another, checking vitals, cleaning wounds, whispering words of comfort. Some of the children were too weak to respond. Others simply stared at the open sky, blinking against the brightness after months in darkness. One small boy, no older than 6, reached out and tugged a medic's sleeve. "Can I go home now?" he asked. The medic paused, swallowed hard, and nodded. Nearby, federal agents lined up the evidence tables. On one was a mountain of seized narcotics, stacked bricks of heroin, meth, and cocaine that together weighed nearly 36 tons. Another table held bundles of cash totaling $46 million, now sealed in plastic. Behind it, technicians carefully opened the 8 encrypted hard drives, which revealed the unthinkable. direct payment links between the cartel and corrupt shipping officials in Panama, Colombia, and even U.S. soil. By 5:10 a.m., the first sunlight began to pierce the mist. Helicopters circled overhead, carrying the last of the detainees to federal custody. At the center of the pier, FBI Director Randall spoke quietly to the Joint Task Force. "You've just dismantled one of the largest trafficking operations in the Western Hemisphere," he said. "Tonight, you didn't just save evidence, you saved lives, and you sent a message, loud and clear." Reporters would later call it the Houston Miracle. But the agents who lived there knew it wasn't luck. It was discipline, coordination, and courage in the face of unimaginable evil. 2 officers remained hospitalized from gunfire wounds. Both were expected to survive. Not a single hostage had died. Not one child had been lost. As the dawn turned the Gulf waters gold, the American flag rose above Dock 7. The night's violence faded into memory, replaced by the quiet sound of waves against the pier. The traffickers' empire had crumbled, their leader captured, their victims freed. For those who stood there, watching the flag move in the early wind, it was a reminder that justice isn't only won in courtrooms or capitals. Sometimes it's fought for in the dark, on the docks, by people who refuse to look away. And as the final radio call came through, mission complete. All lives are safe. The port of Houston fell silent once more, bathed in the light of a new beginning. If this story moved you, leave a comment with the word HOPE. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the next mission in this series. Stories of courage, sacrifice, and the quiet power of American justice. As dawn broke over the Gulf, the smoke above Dock 7 thinned into pale gold. The battle was finished, but its meaning would echo far beyond Houston's harbor. What began as a silent investigation ended as proof of something greater, that the strength of a nation isn't measured only by its weapons, but by the hearts of those willing to stand in the dark so others can live in the light. The men and women of the FBI, DEA, Homeland Security, the Coast Guard, and the U.S. Navy did more than stop a crime. They reminded the world that America still protects its own. They acted without glory, without hesitation, guided by the oldest promise in the Republic's history, that freedom and innocence are worth defending, no matter the cost. In the quiet aftermath, the rescued children slept safely for the first time in months. Their dreams will never erase what was lost, but they will grow under a sky defended by people who refuse to look away. That's what separates this nation from those who trade lives for profit. So tonight, as the flag rises over Houston and the sea turns to light, remember them, the agents, the sailors, the unseen guardians who keep the line secure. Their fight is not over, and neither is ours. If you believe in the courage of those who serve, hit like to honor them. Type "thank you" in the comments to salute every American who stands watch. And subscribe, because more stories of sacrifice, duty, and justice are still to come. The mission never ends, but as long as they stand, freedom endures.